It is 1916, the middle of World War I. The Turks fight on the side of Germany against England, France, and Russia. While life in Palestine had never been pleasant under the Turks, most Jews are now treated as enemy aliens. One man decides to do something about it. Aaronsohn came to the land of Israel with his family as a child. A scientist of immense intellect, he becomes world famous in 1906 when he discovers the origin of wheat. Aaronsohn's success enables him to build an agricultural experiment station at Atlit, off the Palestine coast near Haifa. He writes a confessional letter to his friends in 1916, explaining his decision to fight against the Turks, even though he is a Turkish citizen.
As long as our lives, at least, were safe under the Turkish misrule, I did not feel the right to take a hand in the destruction of the Turks. But when it became clear to me that our lives depended on the caprices of a Jamal or any other Turk suffering from sadism, then I undertook to do all in my power to rid our country of the Turkish scourge.
Aaronsohn is joined by a group of young men and women in his hometown of Zichron Yaakov. They include Aaron's sister, Sarah, and Aaron's trusted deputy, Avshalom Feinberg. They decide the best way they can help Britain, which hopes to use its base in Egypt to drive the Turks from Palestine, is to provide Britain with intelligence. By pretending he is on a scientific mission to help the Turks, Aaronsohn receives their permission to leave for Europe. But when he manages to reach England, his reception is far from what he hoped. A memorandum encapsulates British fears.
He might be just as observant of things here as he has been in Turkey, and a purveyor of information of the conditions in England, if he could get back to Turkey.
Finally convinced of his good faith, the British ask him to go to Egypt. He arrives on December 12, 1916, 5 months after leaving Palestine. In Egypt, a plan is hatched. A British boat under cover of night will draw near to the experiment station at Atlit and enable the transfer of intelligence and material. On January 29th, Aaronsohn is dealt a bitter blow. He learns that his friend and deputy, Avshalom Feinberg, has been killed, shot by a Bedouin while trying to cross the Sinai into Egypt. With no word from Aaronsohn for months, Avshalom had decided to find out what had happened. Aaronsohn learns this from Yosef Lishansky, Avshalom's friend who had accompanied Feinberg through the Sinai. Lishansky, himself wounded in the attack, had managed to escape. Aaron has no time to mourn, nor can he let word get out about Avshalom's death, as that would tip off the Turks. 2 days later, the first successful mission to Atlit is made on the boat SS Monaghan. It's on this trip that the group is named. Leova Schneerson, a friend of Aaronsohn's, explains.
Aaron says to me, "Leova, maybe you know a suitable name for our undertaking." Suddenly a flash in my mind. Why not try the little Bible in the pocket of my coat? Whenever I'm troubled by a problem, I take the Bible, stick my finger in among the pages, count down 7 lines from my finger, and the next line gives me the answer.
This method took him to the line, Netzach Yisrael lo yeshaker, the eternity of Israel will not lie. Leova takes the initial letters NILI. When the British officer aboard the boat hears the name, he says,
"Oh, how nice. She must be a nice girl, this NILI."
With Feinberg gone, Sarah takes over at Atlit. Yosef Lishansky is her deputy. 30 full-time agents dot the country. Some are in a particularly advantageous position. Dr. Moshe Naiman is a physician in the Turkish army. He is stationed at a military hospital across from Afula. In between medical examinations,
I would take a seat in the officers' compartment on the train. I would invite them to a glass of wine. Meantime, my brother would be making a count of the train's cars and their load of ammunition.
Aaron stays in Cairo, acting as a kind of super advisor to the British. Aaronsohn is not able to convince the British on one important point, namely that they should attack from the sea. Aaronsohn has seen how weakly the Turks fortified the coast, but the British, shaken by their experience at Gallipoli, can't bring themselves to again land troops on a hostile shore. Winston Churchill would later recognize this mistake.
The advantage of command of the sea should not have been neglected. If a long-prepared descent had been made at Haifa or elsewhere on the sea coast, the war in Syria would have been ended at a stroke.
Aaron did convince General Edmund Allenby to bypass the Turkish defenses at Gaza and to direct the main offensive at Beersheba. It was a stunning success. But time was running out for the young spies. One of NILI's carrier pigeons loses its way and lands at the home of a Turkish official in Caesarea, alerting the Turks that an espionage group is in their midst. 2 weeks later, on September 17th, there is far worse news. Naaman Belkind, a member of NILI, has been captured. The British agreed to send a boat to carry out a mass evacuation of 60 people off the coast. The boat comes, but the plan is not executed. It appears that Sarah delayed the evacuation for 2 days to allow Josef Leshansky time to recover from a high fever. Leshansky recovers, but a full moon prevents the Monaghan's return. Sarah orders Josef away. She'll face the Turks alone. On October 2nd, Turkish cavalry surrounds Zichron. The Turks know where to go, having extracted the information from Naaman Belkind. First, they torture Sarah's father. Then Sarah is whipped and beaten. When the order comes to transfer the prisoners, Sarah asks for permission to go to her house for a change of clothes. With guards stationed outside, she writes a letter.
Our situation is very bad. I was beaten murderously, and they bound me with ropes. Do remember to describe all our suffering to those who shall come after we have passed away. Tell them about our martyrdom, and let them know that Sarah has asked that each drop of her blood be avenged, measure for measure.
Sarah takes a gun from a secret compartment and shoots herself. She dies 4 days later on October 9th, 1917. Leshansky is captured soon after. He is hanged in Damascus, together with Naaman Belkind. NILI's contribution to the British was substantial. Years later, Captain Raymond Savage, Deputy Military Secretary to Allenby and Allenby's biographer, said,
"It was very largely the daring work of young spies, most of them natives of Palestine, which enabled the brilliant Field Marshal to accomplish this undertaking so effectively."
Aaronsohn would survive the war, only to die in 1919 in a plane crossing the English Channel. NILI's story does not end there. In 1967, the Bedouin of the Sinai lead an Israeli policeman to a date palm called the Jew's Grave. The palm marks the grave of Avshalom Feinberg, the first of NILI's members to fall. Feinberg, it turns out, had dates in his pocket. These had grown into the palm. On November 29, 1967, Avshalom Feinberg is reinterred on Mount Herzl. He is accorded a state funeral with full military honors.